Hello, welcome to my latest video, everybody. we've got an AOS video today. I thought I'd do something different. No, I didn't think I'd do something different. It's just what I'm painting at the moment because I'm dead excited about it. AOS 4th edition's come out and it's got me interested again. I've had a dabble in the past, tried to get into AOS and kind of failed a little bit, but you will have seen my Soul Black Gravelords video. Hopefully, if you haven't, go check it out after this. And I also have, and I've dug these ones back out again. So this is my Idoneth. I bought the start collecting Idoneth box a while ago and tried to find a colour scheme which I liked, which is nearly there. We're going to tweak it a little bit in this video, but the colour scheme was trying to kind of hark back and give a little bit of a nod to the old classic Dark Elves from Warhammer Fantasy. So the very blue, very cold kind of colour scheme. Everything on it is very cold in temperature. There's no kind of warm colours on here. There's no browns, there's no yellows or reds or anything like that. And I think the warmest you get is the slight purple that you get on the arrow tips. So this is a colour scheme that we're going to use. I've tweaked it a little bit. There's a little bit of purple in a little bit of a purple shade on some of the metallics, which I don't like. So we're just going to kind of push the metallics just a little bit brighter instead of keeping them dark metallic like this. But other than that, it's pretty much where we're going to sit. Now we're going to use this Thrall model. I've got loads of models. I've got Thralls. I think I've got 30 Thralls, 20 of the Namati Reavers. I've got some Eels and a couple of Achillean Kings, one converted up, which is quite cool. So we'll do, the plan is we're going to do the colour scheme and the recipes on a infantry like this, and then at some point in the future we'll do another video with the Achillean King and just kind of push the colour scheme a bit further and add some more highlights and some more refinement to the scheme and the steps, if you like. But I wanted to try and get as many of these done, particularly when they're all sort of the same in terms of the Reavers and the Thralls have got the skin and the cloth and then the armour, and they're all very similar. So I thought we'd be able to try and get them all done at once. And one of the tools which we are going to use the airbrush. Now this is my Eyewater Eclipse. It's absolutely gorgeous airbrush. I love it to bits. However, I have neglected it for a long time. It's one of those things that, I'll just do a very quick bit of airbrushing and then I've left it, and the paint has dried in it and things. So every time I got it out to airbrush, I'd have to kind of clean it up a little bit, just enough to make it work, and then I'd put it away again and not really clean it. So completely stripped it out, cleaned absolutely every orifice on it. Showed you some of the tools which I use there. One of the sneaky ones is one of the they are little dental brushes, which are really useful. You can get the smallest ones and they sort of fit inside the nozzle and the needle, which are really cool to clean up. And we've also got the Eyewater Lube here. We are lubing up all the threads. It's just something I do. It's my kind of mechanical side, I suppose, my mechanic engineering side, that I always like to lube up all the threads. So that helps when you're kind of disassembling it again in the future. But it's all very clean now, and it's the action is so much smoother. There's a little bit of paint gets built up just on the back side of the bowl, the paint bowl, and that kind of makes the action of the needle a little bit less smooth. But it's absolutely beautiful now. So yeah, make sure don't do what I do, and make sure you clean your airbrush regularly. You should do after every time you've used it, you should really kind of pick it all apart and just give it a very quick clean and just kind of keep on top of it. So these are the three paints which we're going to use for the skin. Again, we're trying to keep it nice and cold, so we've got like a cold grey, so all the greys in there have got a little bit of blue in them to keep it nice and cold. These are the three blues which we're going to use for the cloth as well. Now deep blue there on the left hand side, deep blue is sort of not necessary. You'll see when we start painting, I don't think you really need the deep blue. So what you could do is you could remove the deep blue and then add a brighter, lighter blue to the top side of this, just to just to give yourself a little bit more room for the highlights as well. So that's one thing that I would do, and just kind of tweak again if I was going to do it again. So heavy charcoal, this is the first kind of coat. It's thinned down in the airbrush. All these are going to be thinned down with Tamiya thinner, and they're probably thinned down, probably 2 parts of Tamiya thinner to 1 part paint, keeping it really, really thin. We want to build up thin coats of this, and thin layers, so that we can build it up nice and slowly, and then also we get a little bit of blending working as well. So you can see you kind of put 1 coat on and it's not quite as opaque, and it's got a little bit of translucency that you can play with, and then you can build it up nice and slowly. You saw the massive spider web on the top of the head, and that has now gone. We're just building up the highlight of on this somber grey. I'm trying to keep this pretty much from above, or at least like 90 degrees, so we've still got some shadow underneath, and then the final highlight here we're going to go very, very much from above, and kind of really tighten up on the highlights. Keep it very, very tight, and we want to kind of pick out the top of the head, and anything that's facing upwards, and anything that's high on the model, so the top of the hands and things like this. You can also kind of just neatly kind of just touch some of the shoulders to make those to make the muscles on the shoulders and the muscles like on the arms just kind of pop a little bit. So don't do too much on this one. I think I probably went a little bit heavy on some of mine, but you can always, and it's something that we do in a second as well, you can always go back in with the heavy charcoal. So you can turn the heavy charcoal into a little bit of a glaze, and you can go back in after you've done all of this and just knock it back a little bit. But you can see we've kind of built it up, and you've got some variation there on tones just from those couple of highlights, and building them up very, really slowly. And yeah, this is the glaze, so the heavy charcoal glaze, just kind of knocking back some of the areas, giving some of the muscles and some shadow again, a bit of definition. It's a lot easier when you're airbrushing to add shadows back in than it is to kind of keep the highlights tight, if that makes sense. So this is what I mean about this deep blue. This deep blue goes on, and there's not a lot of difference really. Now, one of the cool things about the Idoneth is that the torso and the bottom half they're all separated by that waistband, and the waistband is quite large. So what you can do is you can quite safely kind of airbrush the skin, and then come back and then address and attack the cloth underneath it, safe in the knowledge that belt is quite wide, and it's separating the two airbrush bits out. There might be some of the character models maybe which are a bit tighter, and if you do get something like that, then you can just work on with a little bit of masking or something. That would help. But as you can see here, so this is a navy blue, and I would probably start with this because we're not really. It's always black. We're working from a black undercoat anyway, so if we were going to do the navy blue from the start, I think it would probably work absolutely fine. So I'd probably go navy blue, and then the Mediterranean blue. This one is this is the kind of the mid-tone, if you like, and then you can highlight after this. But we're just going on. We're trying to pick a direction that the light is coming in from, and working just from that direction. So we've got this nice sharp crease on the back, so we're just going to highlight one side of that and have it nice and bright, and then we're just picking, as you can see, just the top areas of the cloth as well, where it comes up to the waist, making sure we're highlighting that as well. And that's all the airbrush work pretty much finished, and that's where we get to. That there is a bit of a funky bit of dust or something on the arm. I do address that at some point later. I think I'll do it on stream when I was showing it off, because it was annoying me. Just that little bit of dust there on his right arm. But that's where we get to with the airbrush, and we've got all of that sort of in, and now we've got the nice, slow and relaxing job of blacking out everything. So anything that is black, we've got the weapon handle, some of the, I can't remember whether I go over the metallics or not. I don't think I do actually, but the weapon handle, for instance, and then on the Namati Reavers, you've got the arrows and things like that. Just go over all the parts which are going to be black. This is model color black, which is a lovely black to work with. It's nice and matte as well, which for this particular application is really useful. We don't particularly want too much shine on the weapon haft, and the same with the trousers as well. So the trousers are going to be black. We're going to get some highlights dropped on those in a second. But yeah, I wanted to keep the kind of the color palette quite clean and simple. You've got the skin, which is obviously this kind of cold grey, and then you've got the cloth, which is the cold blue as well, and then it's all balanced off with the silver, and I didn't really want to kind of pull any focus away from those sort of two colours, and anything else which was on the model which I didn't really want to be anything else. You could possibly do the trousers blue, but I just thought it added a bit too much, so the black came in for the trousers. So really neat. I think this is a Da Vinci size 1. It's a beautiful brush I use for 90% of my painting. I do like my Da Vincis. They've got a nice long tip, and they also hold plenty of paint in the belly of the brush as well. Now this one's a slightly older one, so the tip is worn down a little bit, but still really good control, and gives you the ability to nudge right up next to the transitions and the borders and boundaries of other parts of the model. Make sure you get that. That little strap on the leg. Now I do touch up a little bit of this. Now the reason why I just do this backside here is that this is this got hit by quite a lot of the final highlight for the skin, and I don't really want to put the metallic over that much of a bright colour. The metallic really likes going over a darker colour, and that's where you get the kind of the shadow coming from with the metallic. So I try to kind of touch as much as I can around the neck there, just to give the metallic some kind of contrast when you do eventually apply it. And this is the metallic we're going to use, which is scale colour black metal. It's getting very old. I haven't got very much left. I need to get a new pot and fill up the flip top pot that we've got here. But this is going to go on every single bit of metallic. As you can see, it's slightly watered down. Now I do use this on my wet palette, but once I've finished using it, I do kind of get a little cloth and just remove it from the wet palette, so it doesn't sit on the wet palette for too long. If it does sit on the wet palette, that's where you get it splitting. And you can, if you're not careful, it does then tend to run into the water and just kind of ruin the wet palette foam and things. But yeah, I do water it down just a fraction. It's probably 1 drop of water to 2 or 3 drops of paint. Just allows it to flow a little bit as well. Don't thin it too much. If you thin it too much, then you will start seeing a bit too much of the colour coming from underneath. But yeah, this is beautiful colour. It's really good. I use it absolutely all the time. I should probably not. One of the things that I do if I need to try a slightly different tone, then I'll mix a contrast paint in with this, just to try and shift the tone to a slightly warmer silver, for instance, if I wanted something like Lead Belcher. But yeah, it's such a nice paint. So this is going on the axe as well. We're going to do the weapons really simple. Again, this is infantry, so we've got lots of these to do. So we're trying to do lots of the steps nice and simply, but just keeping it nice and neat. So if you can do it nice and neatly but keep it simple, and then en masse across the whole army, it just looks really good. Trim around the loincloth here. This is really tricky actually to figure out where the trim sort of starts and where it ends. You can end up with quite a lot of this being silver, so I tried to kind of use a few artistic license bits and just made sure that I wasn't painting absolutely everything silver. because I still wanted that nice bright blue coming on strong on the model. So I think there's a bit of the border that kind of creeps up to the top of the waistline a little bit too much on the loincloth, like that bit there that I was highlighting with the blue. I think it's actually supposed to be the silver trim. But anyway, I tried to reduce that as much as I can. Now this is just Mediterranean blue again, because we airbrushed it on last time. It kind of fades and softens nicely, but then we can brush paint it on, and it leaves a nice strong mark. So we're just going to touch the edges with the Mediterranean blue. Now if you have taken out the deep blue and you've used Mediterranean blue a little bit brighter, then just mix in a little bit of white to this Mediterranean blue and you can add that one extra highlight. I think I will probably go back and add it in and add that extra highlight in. I don't think it particularly needs it, but yeah, I think it would probably help, just adding that little bit of extra punch. But just, it's really, really simple. Any creases that you see, just give them a little bit of a kiss with the Mediterranean blue and just helps it pop. And then we're also just going to go back into the top of the head as well. This is exactly the same. So the pale grey blue is the same paint that we used as a highlight through the airbrush, but because we're applying it with the brush, it just adds that little bit of sharpness to some of the areas. And you can see it really does make a bit of a difference on some of the areas that are nice and sharp, like the fingers and the little rune around his forehead and things. Catch the top of the ears and stuff. Nice and simple, nice and quick. Looks really, really good. And because we've saved a lot of time as well on the model with the airbrushing is it's actually quite quick. It doesn't take very long at all. So you can then just kind of settle down and put a little bit more time into things like this, just to kind of push and finish off the model just a fraction. Sorry, slightly out of focus there. You got a lovely in focus shot of my thumb instead of the head. But yeah, so this is the first simple step on the highlighting of the black. So this is Eclipse Grey, again from Scale Colour. It's a gorgeous grey. It's really, really nice grey. And I'm just kind of catching the top of the weapon haft. Just a nice simple, because it's a cylinder, we're just going to highlight the top side of it. So nice simple highlight running down the top of that. And then also just a nice simple highlighter down the top of the trousers as well. I'm doing the highlight on this horizontally across the trousers so that you've got a little bit of texture. And then on the back as well, just making sure that as you go over the calf, that highlight gets nice and large over the calf, because the calf is obviously quite big. And then this is, again, we're trying to keep the tone nice and cold, so we're just using some turquoise for the gems. Really, really simple on this one. So we're going to put the turquoise on first. We're then going to get some blue-green, add a highlight to the bottom, and then just a little highlight reflection in white on the top side, but that keeps the tone the same as well, and there we go. It just looks really, really good, nice and simple. It keeps the tone the same, but just introduces another colour into the mix sort of thing, but it doesn't distract. And you could do these purple as well. That's another option as well, because we do add a bit of purple for things like the tassel that's hanging off his waist. So you could also go use purple for these. And then one last little bit. There's a little bit of blue green. I take a little bit of blue green and thin it down quite a lot, so just so that we can run it into the recess on the rune on his forehead. Now this is a simple highlight for all the metals. We're just going to get heavy metal from Scale Colour, which is it's just like a really, really nice bright chrome, and we're just going to highlight the edge of the weapon here, and then any other edges which are facing upwards as well. Nice and simple. We're just going to do one half, and then it leaves the surface of the axe nice and dark. It's just really effective and just looks really, really good, and it's a really simple thing to do. So any surface which is facing upwards. Again, we're going to match the highlight on the shaft to the Eclipse grey highlight that we've already added. And then the same down on the arm and on the legs. Any surface which is facing upwards, like these little recesses down there, just highlight those. Highlight the tops of the shin pads, and then the tops of the belt as well. Now the loincloth down here, it kind of curls up at the bottom, so you can just add a little bit of a highlight to the bottom of that as well, and it just helps that match the blue highlight as well that we've got down there, and go around the trim. Trying to keep it really simple. 2 steps for metallics is pretty good. You could add a shade if you wanted to, but it's already quite dark. The black metal kind of stays quite dark anyway, so just adding a few touches here and there just to make it pop just looks really good. All the way up around the collar as well. So this is the you can see that I forgot to do this because we've got not only have we got a different background, we've also got the base finished as well. I forgot to do the little tassel. So this is Zera's purple, nice and clean. Again, I would probably think about doing some of the gems this purple as well, just so that it's not quite so left out, if you like. When you get the Namati Reavers, I do as you saw from the first model that we showed off, the top of the arrow fletchings, they get done purple. It just adds that little bit of colour as well onto those. Purple's a really good, again, it's a good cold colour. It goes with the scheme, sits really well. Fulgrim pink comes in now just to kind of edge highlight and pick out the final bits. And if you were doing the gems in this, you would do the same kind of thing. So you would just catch the top side of the gems with this Fulgrim pink, keep the Zera's purple everywhere else, and then there's one last step where we just kind of shade with a little bit of Nagaroth Night. And you could do that on the gems as well, if you wanted to shift the gems from the turquoise to this purple. But any sort of little tassel or accessory, there's a few kind of dangling ones on some of the characters that you get as well, which is away from things like skulls and stuff. So any little dangling accessories, you could probably do this purple and do that really well on those. So catch the edges. Any surface which is facing upwards, you can do a little bit heavier and make a slightly larger highlight. And if you do make any mistakes, you can just take this Nagaroth Night and just shade it back. Nice and simple. Make sure you're painting on screen, Chris. There we go. So yeah, just into the recesses, just running that in. That has been thinned, probably two parts water to 1 part paint as well, just so that we can glaze that in and soften some of the highlights down, and catch the underside as well. So this is the base. I wanted to keep the base really simple. Now the bases aren't quite finished, and I promise I'm going to do when I get all the other bits, because I'm kind of umming and ahhing. I think I've got an idea of what I want to do on the bases, but as soon as I've got it finished off, I will do a separate basing video for you. But this is where we're starting. I've got some builder's sand, which I've left out on the windowsill in a pot just to dry off, and then as soon as it gets completely dry, it changes the tone, it dries out, it becomes a lot easier to add onto the base as well. So we coat it with a little bit of PVA glue. It's PVA glue watered down with a touch of matte varnish in there as well, just to stop it being quite so shiny. And then one thing that I do is I drop the sand on. If you put the base in the sand, you get a little bit too much build up, and the sand it starts ending up. I don't know. It just starts being a bit too bulky, and you lose that nice clean line, if you like, of sand. So I tend to drop mine on, pick up a kind of a pinch of it, and then drop a bit on, rather than dipping the base into the sand. It just you get a nicer finish. And then you saw I dropped a little bit of flow improver on there and then added some glue on top as well. What you didn't see after that is I also then sprinkled some sand on top of that as well. It just gives you a little bit of undulation, so you can control where the undulations are as well by adding that flow improver and glue on top. So these are this is one of the ways that I wanted to keep the base really simple. So I'm not going to paint it. I am going to add, I have a plan to add some tufts and everything on there as well, but one of the things I did is I just nipped onto eBay and I grabbed, this is 100, and they are micro shells rather than small shells. If you look for small shells, they're probably 3 times the size of this, but these ones are micro shells, and I just wanted to use them a little bit like scatter, a little bit like sand, just to add a bit of interest to the base. And I'd drop a little bit of glue on the base and drop the shell on, and then you can add a little bit more just to kind of make sure that they are held. The glue around them, because it's wet, you can just drop a little bit more sand on there as well. Just sprinkle a bit more sand on, just so that they look like they're settled in the base a little bit. It's one of the ways that you can kind of get it all nicely involved and set. And one of the things that I want to do is get I've actually just ordered some slightly larger shells as well. I've got some conch shells as well, the big white shells that you see on a lot of things. So I've got some of those. I'm going to add those on as well around the shells and the tufts, which we're going to add on as well at some point. So, but that's basically, I just wanted to show you where the base kind of sits now. So that's where it stands. I've used the sand, the builder's sand, and then a couple of shells, and then we're going to advance this and try to improve on it as well. So that's where the model stands at the moment. So he's all nicely and neatly finished up with the base as well. And the tufts which I want to use are from a website called Gamers Crafts, and they also sell them at Rival Crafts as well, so you can check on my description. Yeah, I want to grab some from Gamers Crafts, and the plan is that I'm going to grab some which look like seaweed, and then I'm going to use some straight tufts as well. And here we are, so we're on Gamers Grass here. This is their website, and one of the really good things about the Gamers Grass stuff is that they're all very, very matte finish. Yeah, so if you go onto their website, you go to the tufts, the special tufts, and there's the green and the dark green. I'm going to use the dark green, and I think if you just have a look at this when it's showing off there on the actual kind of inset photo, if you like, I think it looks very much like seaweed. So again, I want to try and keep the base really simple, but really involved, if you like. So we've got two different static grass tufts which I want to try and use as well. Now these ones, they look green in the pictures, but then when you're kind of scrolling through here, I think they look a little bit too warm. I'm going to grab both of them and just to see which ones work, or maybe I'll just mix them both in as well and give the base a bit of variety. So I'm going to try the strong green, the dry green as well. So we've got the dry green and the mixed green, and then mix those in and just kind of completely cover the base, but give a little bit of space for the shells as well, just to kind of show through, particularly the large kind of white conch shells. I think they'll look really good kind of peeking through the seaweed tufts and the grass tufts, if you like. So I wanted to just kind of fill the base with these and have the base quite busy, if you like, but simple in terms of how to achieve it. So that's the plan. When I do grab those, I promise I will do a very, very short video just on all the bases which I've done and any kind of variations that I've got. I've got the Achillean King, which is a slightly larger one, which will try and add a bit more landscaping to and a bit more undulations, and we'll have plenty of shells, of course, on that one as well. But as soon as that happens, then I will do a new video for you on that on the basis. But I hope you enjoyed watching this one on how I did the Idoneth. I am getting incredibly excited about playing more AOS as we kind of go. And yeah, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Thanks, and bye-bye.